Jefferson County Clerk David Yates has launched an audit after several voters in the May 2026 primary were unable to cast their ballot in their correct precinct in a closely decided Kentucky House primary. As Wave News reporter Kirsten Foote shares, the error could have impacted other races as well.
Jefferson County Clerk David Yates says of the 8 voters who should have cast a ballot in the District 44 House race, a Democratic primary, 5 were registered Democrats, and the race was decided by 5 votes. That race resulted in Kenya Wade unseating Beverly Chester Burton. But that's not the only race that may have been affected. Some of those voters had voted in 6 different elections before this. Yates says it comes from a clerical error made in 2021 after redistricting, when an election worker was manually keying in updated information and got something wrong. He says the overarching problem is an outdated system of inputting voter registration details. One wrong letter or one missed click could result in an error. With the audit underway, Yates is also calling out the need to update their system, not just in Jefferson County, but across the Commonwealth.
It matters. Every single vote matters, especially at the local races. And at the local races, a lot of times have the most impact in your daily life. I'm going to work to make sure that not only is this done and made sure it's correct for November, but we've got to have a digital process in place to make sure that in real time that it continues to be corrected.
The clerk's office is looking into nearly 600,000 houses across the county. While the results of the audit and the corrections they make will not change past election results, they say in future elections, voters will get the correct ballots. A timeline for this audit is still unclear, although Yates says he hopes it could be done by August. Reporting in Louisville, Kirsten Foote, Wave News.